Thank you. And Brad, our audio engineer, I'm in Lake Tahoe. It's a wonderful, beautiful day, and I want to encourage you listening in on the webcast to post a comment in the live Q&A box and just say hi and share where you are listening from in the world today, what it's like for you. We'll be starting in just a moment. It's so great to be here with you today. We have hundreds of comments that have been posted and people waving out. There's Juan Louis from Sichuan in China, Dale from Williamsburg, Victor from Mexico, Richard from Sugarland, Fa from Moody, Devorah from McKinney, Ethel from Conveyors, Melodine from Brooklyn, Barbara from Los Angeles, Shalina from France, and so many more, hundreds of comments coming in. It's amazing to feel the energy of our global tribe as we are coming together. And so let me officially welcome you here today to our special event, How to Bring God into Your Life. This is a virtual workshop with my extraordinary friends Neale Donald Walsh on the 3 key blocks that keep you from creating a life of happiness, abundance, and purpose. I'm Claire Zammit. I am the founder of the Feminine Power Courses for Women and the co-founder of Evolving Wisdom, the organization that is hosting this event, as well as Neale's upcoming 7-week Conversations with God online interactive course that's starting this Thursday. I'm going to be hosting the event tonight. And I know that so many of you already know Neale. You probably know that Neale has spent decades teaching and mentoring about his experience with Conversations with God. He has written, is it 30 books now, Neale?
Well, 33 to be exact.
33? 33 books that have had a huge impact on millions and millions of people, really transforming people's understanding of spirituality. And I think what was so significant decades ago when Neale began writing about this series and teaching and mentoring the series, he really showed us that we really misunderstand God. Most of us misunderstand what God really is. And Neale also showed us that we can have our own direct relationship with divine wisdom and a higher power. And the thing that really strikes me about Neale's story is his starting point for this life-changing journey was at a place of personal challenge and struggle that so many of us have never seen in our lives, from homelessness to amazing health, very deep health challenges, very painful things to deal with. So, these are not thoughts or concepts for Neale. These are truths that he has discovered in the midst of I think probably the biggest experiences of suffering that we can have as human beings to go through, that totally transformed his life. And in discovering the power of this truth, really made it his mission to spread this information as far and wide. And what I most appreciate about Neale, so many things I appreciate about Neale, but just in having the privilege to get to know him personally, is that he lives this. He is first and foremost such an extraordinary success at being a human being and embodying what's possible and the kind of person you can become and life that you can create when you take and live these deep truths in your life. So I'm really honored to be welcoming you officially to this global event, Neale, with thousands of people here tonight. We're really excited to hear from you. And I'd love to just officially welcome you into the circle with everybody.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here, and that was a very sweet introduction, and I only wish I could live up to it.
Thank you
for those nice words.
You do in every interaction that I have with you. It's wonderful, and I'm really excited to be here with you tonight. So before we dive in and begin the event, I just want everyone to know that this is going to be a very interactive event. You'll have the opportunity to ask questions to Neale. There's a live Q&A box that's there on the webcast player. Really invite you to share your openings and your ahas as we go through. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions at different sections. And you might want to have a pen and paper handy. So many people report during Neale's seminars that they have a flash of clarity or insight, so you might want to be ready to capture this. And so we're going to be opening it up to hear from Neale, and then we're going to hear from members of our community who are going to jump on live tonight for Neale to work directly with to apply these insights and principles to really practical problems or challenges that they might be facing as a way to support all of us to integrate and apply what Neale is sharing about tonight. And you'll have the opportunity to hear about other participants who have lived with these principles and applied them to their life and hear about what's possible, what opens up for them. And we'll take as many questions as we have live, time to take live, and we'll also share some of the highlights of the opportunity for you to join Neale for the upcoming Conversations with God course that's starting on Thursday. And you can find out all about that by clicking on the link on the audio player on the web page that's right below the play button there, or you can visit conversationswithgodcourse.com. And you can find out all about the program and the special additional bonuses that we've created for you as well. So let's dive in, Neale. Let's get started. We actually have hundreds of posts coming in, a lot of love and excitement from all corners of the globe. Beth from Perth, Kathy from London, Brenda from Jacksonville, Annie from Largo. We're here with really, truly a global audience. And why don't we start and dive in? So the 3 blocks that keep us from creating a life of happiness and abundance and purpose. I know you've said the first block is that you don't feel, when we don't feel like God is responding to us.
Well, yeah, there are three blocks that I've experienced in my own life, which is what actually drove me to my Conversations with God experience. And at first I thought it was just me, that was encountering these blocks. But then as I began to work with others in my lectures, in my workshops, in my seminars and programs through the years, I realized, oh my gosh, this is really epidemic. That is, people all over the world, from my observation, by and large, seem to be confronting these same 3 blockages. Block number 1 that I observed in myself and in others is that we feel that God simply isn't responding. It's just we believe in God. We know there's a God. We have an idea about all of that, but we just think that God isn't responding. Block number 2, we feel disconnected with God. We think that God is somehow not connected to us, and maybe that's the reason that God isn't responding. And then the third block that I've discovered in myself and others is that even if we get past the first 2, we find it difficult to recognize and express the aspect of divinity that resides within all of us. So you put those 3 together, and it's small wonder that we sometimes have great difficulty in experiencing the kind of life we'd like to experience, a life of happiness, abundance, and a clear sense of purpose in our day-to-day experience.
Well, and I think it's a paradox because we identify as being very spiritual, caring people. Most of us, right? We believe in a higher power, and yet our experience in our daily life is somehow, we have so many periods of feeling alone in the universe, and there's like no one's responding to us. And,
that was
right?
my life experience for sure, yeah. Claire. And I grew up in a very traditional. Religious household. My background, my family was Roman Catholic, and so I grew up believing that there's a God and God will answer your prayers, etc., etc. But boy, when I got into my adult life, and even for the few years before I became a full-fledged adult, my experience was exactly the opposite. That is, I still held on to my belief that there is this thing called God, but I was not experiencing that God was responding to my prayers, to my pleas, to my requests. I just didn't have that experience enough of the time to cause me to have a real high level of faith in that. And you're right, I felt alone. I have felt alone many times in my life, not the least of which was when I spent an entire year on the road, on the street, on the sidewalk as a street person, when I didn't have a house to live in. I didn't have any clothes to speak of, 2 pair of jeans, 3 shirts, and a pair of shoes. That was it, whatever I could get into my little backpack. And that was the sum total of my worldly possessions. And I lived that way for a year outside because of circumstances in my life that put me out there. And believe me, I understand the feeling of being alone and of God not responding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what is there to do to kind of get unblocked from that sense of disconnection?
Well, I can share what I discovered in my life, and perhaps that can help others avoid all those things that I was experiencing and avoid a prolonged feeling of God not responding. What I've discovered in my life is that, in fact, God is always responding. It's not possible for God not to be responding. That God is the response itself. That God is the word we've given to that essential essence, that essential energy, the primal force, if you please, in the universe, which cannot help but respond. The response is automatic. So what I've learned in my life is that the system is always working, if I could put it that way. The switch is always in the on position. God is always responding, but God may not be responding in the way that we think that God either ought to respond or should respond or could be expected to respond. So what I needed to do in my life, and what I advise people as well to get out of that place and to avoid that block of feeling that God is not responding, is to reorganize our thoughts around what we think that God's response should look like, and to become better acquainted with what it does look like. If we think that God responding is just about God saying, yes, you can have exactly what you're asking for in exactly the way you are asking for it, with precisely all of your conditions, met and everything perfectly aligned, that may not be what is occurring in our life. In fact, for very many people, and we just discussed this, it doesn't show up that way. So it looks as if God is not responding. So the way we get around this notion and even the appearance of God not responding is to change our expectation about what God's response would look like. And the first thing we need to know, when I said a minute ago that God is always responding, the switch is always on, is that in fact it is. And because the switch is always on, the power is always on in terms of our ability to connect with what I call God, the divine essence of the energy of the universe. The trick around that, what we need to look at around that, is that if that power switch is always on, it's listening to every single request that we make. And most of the time in my life, Claire, I didn't understand that I was making requests when I wasn't thinking about it. In other words, I thought that God only listened to me when I was praying or asking or somehow mediating or requesting something directly. But in fact, that's not how the universe works. The power switch is always on, and it's listening to everything that we think and that we say, and even watching everything we do. So that the response that we're receiving is the response to how we are moving through life, the thoughts that we think, the words that we speak, the actions that we undertake. When we add in my life, when I added all that up together, about maybe 15% of it was on target in terms of positivity and clarity and understanding what it is I really wish to experience and express in my life, and somewhere around 80 or 85% of it, of my thoughts, words, and actions, were moving in the other direction. They were either thoughts that, well, this isn't going to happen. They were negative thoughts this can't possibly happen, or I should have known better, or watch, it'll rain on Saturday, I bet, or we'll never find a parking space. I'm using a simple example. Much less, I'll probably never earn the kind of money I really want to earn in life. It's not possible. I've always been, lucky at cards, unlucky at love. Those kinds of things we tell. We even tell jokes about it. The joke about the universe not responding to what we want, the joke is out there, and we think that most often, my experience, at least in my life, and my experience of most people that I've done some spiritual coaching with, is that most people unwittingly, that is, they don't know they're doing it, they don't deliberately think negative thoughts, it's just the way the mind works. And the mind works that way for a very good reason. The mind has taken in the data that it has observed from the collective human experience and from the human culture, from our human society, if you please. Having collected that data, the mind has convinced itself that more often than not, we're not going to have the highest and best outcome. We're not going to have the easiest path. We're not going to have the greatest opportunity. We have been trained in our life by our society to think negatively, and without even thinking that we're thinking negatively. In other words, we don't give it a second thought. We just naturally how many people feel about life. So at the very least, we're very cautious. So optimistic thinkers are in the minority. And as we look around life right now on the planet, even as we're talking tonight, it's understandable how it could be that way. So we have to obey the first rule. The first rule with regard to breaking this blockage up, getting past this blockage of feeling that God isn't responding, the first rule is judge not by appearances. Do not think that God isn't responding because it doesn't appear as if God is. Judge not by appearances. Second rule is change what it is that you are sending to the universe, that you're putting in the great machinery in the sky, if you please, the universal machinery of creation. Change what you're putting into that machinery, because there's an old saying, the universe works not unlike a great computer, really. It's like, and how the old saying in computers, GIGO, G-I-G-O, garbage in, garbage out. That is, you will find the universe sending back to you what you are sending it. So rule number 2 is that guard very carefully and watch very closely the thoughts that you're sending into the universe, the words that you're speaking out there out loud, and of course the actions that you are undertaking as you move through your daily life. So those are 2 real quick rules that I've learned how to get around this blockage. And these are not small or unimportant rules. They're very, very important and very powerful if we want to get past the notion that God isn't responding to us. So to know that the power is always on, and then to watch how the universe responds to our every thought, word, and belief, and every action. And we therefore suggest and invite, encourage, and almost in a sense, if this were a class where you have to do homework, we'd almost require it, for you to just take a look at the 10 ideas that you hold about life and about yourself in the areas of money, relationship, health, career, which is, a little bit different from money, your career or your right livelihood, in all the important areas of your life, to take a look at what is my current belief right now, and what has been my present and my life experience to this point right now with regard to all of those. And to then take a look at what could I do to change, if any of those beliefs at all are not at the highest level of optimism, if they aren't the most positive thoughts you could possibly have. And to be fair, because your experience has not shown that to be true for you. But if they're not the highest, most positive thoughts you could ever have, to begin to, as your assignment, to begin to write out what would be the most pie in the sky, the most positive, I want to even almost say unbelievable. We'll talk about that in a minute, because if it's unbelievable, of course, you can't have it, but that's another whole story. But for the purposes of this exercise, what's the most unbelievable pie in the sky, wonderful idea or thought you could have? If you could have the greatest thing, the greatest response from the universe, the greatest response from God that your imagination will allow, what would it be in all of those key areas? In the area of health, livelihood and career and relationship and all of life, really, what would your highest thought be? And take a look at how often do you think that? How often is that your notion? I have to say something. I had that idea as a child. That is, I had the most positive ideas about my life as a child. I always thought things were going to go my way. And you know what? They did, right on straight through high school. But somehow or another, when I got out of high school and got into, the more of the workaday world, and I was 18, 19, 20, and getting into college and then beyond, I began to, face life as it was, because until I was at that age, I was living in my parents' home, and things were going my way. I lived in a lovely household. I'm very grateful for that, and I realized that isn't the case with everybody on the planet, but I had a wonderful childhood. So I had, no reason not to think that everything was going to go my way. Then I turned 17 or 18. I began to get out there in the workaday world, 20, 21, 22, and I realized, I see. It's not quite like this. I lived, it turns out, a very sheltered existence. And suddenly my thoughts about life began to shift based on the evidence in front of me. I began to believe that what was happening was real and was unavoidable. That's just how it is in real life. It was time for me to, what they say, grow up. Well, in fact, that was my first mistake. So what I learned to do in my life now is to judge not by appearances and to step into a different reality, the reality of my creation, rather than the reality that has been co-created by the constructions put into life by the collective consciousness. I want to share something with you here at this point, Claire. I know I've been going on and on here, but
I'm taking it in. I'm on the edge of my seat.
Well,
I'll respond in a minute, too.
What I want to share here is that life is my experience has been a constant struggle. I almost wanted to use the word battle, although I hate to use those kinds of words, but it certainly is a struggle. Life, as I've observed it, is a constant struggle between the collective consciousness and my individual consciousness. We are in the process right now as a species, that is humanity, is in a great process being undertaken right now in this very moment, in these days and times of our lives, a movement to shift and to I want to almost use the word heal the collective consciousness of our species. But that has not been accomplished yet. After all these thousands of years, the healing has not yet fully taken place. The result of that is that we have a wounded collective consciousness, a collective consciousness which is nowhere near approaching the actual reality of things, the ultimate reality. But our individual consciousness can reach the place of embracing that ultimate reality. It's about shifting our perspective. We'll talk a little bit about that more as this program goes on, I hope. But right now, just to notice this, we are in a continual day-to-day struggle. Most human beings are. The struggle between the collective consciousness, all the data that is incoming to us from the television, from the movies, from the video games, from some of the books we read, from all around us, just from stepping outside our front door, for heaven's sake, just walking down the street. The data that our society, that our culture is sending to us is in way too many instances at variance with our highest thought about life and how it could be and how it should be and how we wish that it would be. So we are constantly being challenged by the collective consciousness, which produces the collective experience of humanity, and our individual consciousness, and on that point of decision, which one is true? Gee, I wonder which one is true. Is my individual consciousness what's true, or is the collective consciousness what's true? And if my individual consciousness is what's true, why isn't it reflected more often out there in the collective consciousness? The answer, of course, is that not enough members yet. We have not reached critical mass yet with regard to the number of people in a place of collective consciousness that reflects the highest thought, the highest truth, the grandest awareness that human beings can have about themselves, who they are, why they're here, and what's all going on around us. So until those numbers increase, we're going to continue to face that struggle. I don't want to be a defeatist, however. There's a way to overcome all of that, but we have to know what's going on. That's why I brought it up. We do need to know what's going on. We can't kid ourselves about that. When you step outside your front door, you're going to be walking right into it, and all of us have experienced that My goodness, when you just open the mailbox. Mailboxes, ladies and gentlemen, are things we used to have years ago when people actually sent pieces of paper to each other, and human beings actually delivered them to your door. These days, everything's done electronically, but that's another whole story. In any event, before you open your email and get on your internet and move into the world at large, be aware of what's happening, just to know. Not that it can't be overcome, because it can, but be aware what you're stepping into, because if you expect the world to be a reflection immediately, tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, of the consciousness that you wish to embrace, then you will be disappointed, I believe, and you'll find out that, you'll have the thought, at least, that I see God isn't responding to me. But God is always responding. But here's what I want you to know. God is responding to humanity as a collective, and to each of us as individuations within that collective. And so to make God's response to us such that it is not a constant reflection of the collective consciousness, we need to undertake certain processes, certain ways of moving through life. We need to, and the first part of that process is ignore the man behind the curtain. Ignore the collective consciousness. That is, do not believe what you see and embrace that as if it were true for you. I want you to hear that as loudly as I can say it. What you see in front of you does not need to be true for you. And when enough of us embrace with clarity that notion, we can actually begin to shift the collective consciousness around us. That shift will occur first in this small group around us, within our family, our inner circle, then within our circle of friends and associates and neighbors and perhaps people, colleagues at work, and then larger, extending out further and further until, in some ways, it can, in fact, encompass large numbers of people, millions of people, and ultimately, at some level, the whole world. We've known people who have done that. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is a perfect example of a person whose collective consciousness first was determined by him as to what he wanted it to be, then extended it outward to his family, to his associates, to his friends, finally to his neighborhood, then to his state, his nation, and ultimately he touched the entire world. And he did, in fact, shift our collective consciousness dramatically around the idea of racial relationships and equality and so forth, to the point where he stands as one of the icons of human history, and others could be named in that circle as well. So don't think for 1 minute that one person does not have the ability to effect in a positive way the collective consciousness, because I promise you that one person can.
Well, Neale, there's so much in this that I just want to unpack and reflect back in this first key, and how to move past this first block. So I just want to try to recap. You said so much that's so rich. So the context being, here we are as people who are privileged to live in a time where there is so much opportunity and possibility, and we feel there's this possibility for our creativity, our career, our contribution, for love, intimacy, health, vitality, experiencing an extraordinary life. We see that, we feel that. Those of us who are here, we're spiritual people. We have an orientation of being spiritual people, and yet, very strangely, we suffer, we struggle, and how that shows up, that suffering really shows up for us, is this feeling of disconnection, that we are completely alone in the universe, and we can't really connect with. Like God's not responding to us. We've been abandoned by life. We've been lost. We've been forgotten by life and lost our ways. And some of us have had losses. We've had disappointments. We've had things happen that are different to what we thought, kind of how our life would unfold. And so what you're saying is, in those moments, what's happening is, our attention, kind of has shifted onto a place where we're more focused on kind of negativity and non-possibility, and like places in which our attention is on those places where we actually ourselves are disconnecting from God. Like
our
we
attention,
ourselves, right?
Our attention is on those things that we want, that we wish we had.
Right.
And conversations with God makes it very clear. Yeah. You may not have anything you want. I want to make that point here at this juncture because it fits right in, and it's very important for people to hear that God is responding to you all the time, but you may not have anything you want. And God made that very clear to me in the dialogue. Of course, it stopped me short. I said, wait a minute, what are you saying to me? What are you saying I can't have anything I want? I thought that I was the creator of my own reality. God said, you are. That's the problem. You are, in fact, the creator of your own reality. And you cannot have anything you want. The two statements are not contradictory. I said, wow, well, you're way above me. Please explain it to me. God said, I will. You are the creator of your own reality. And if you are declaring that you want something, I want this, I want that, I want more money in my life, I want the perfect partner in my life, I want this illness to go away, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. I wish I had this, I wish I had that, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. I'm praying for this, I'm praying for that, I'm praying for my perfect partner, I'm praying for my perfect job, I'm praying for my perfect income, or affirming it, or whatever you think you're doing. You cannot have what you want because you are the creator of your own reality, and your statement that you want it is your announcement of your reality. That is, if you are saying you want something, you must be declaring that you do not now have it. And your declaration that you do not now have it is what's operational in your life. Well, I said to God, oh, fair enough. I can get the logic of that. I get that on a logic level. I can't declare something that I want if I choose to experience having it now, but how do I get around the fact that I don't have it right now? I don't have the income right now that I would choose. I don't have the perfect relationship right now that I would choose. I don't have the perfect health right now that I would choose. Don't play word games with me, God. I said, I had a very down-to-earth conversation with God. I said, don't play with my mind. I don't have those things now, so how can I not want them? Of course I want them. God said, okay, I get it. I see the problem. And I understand that you do not now experience having it, but consistently and insistently declaring that you want it, you want it, you want it, you wish for it, you wish for it, you wish for it, you pray for it, you pray for it, you pray for it, merely continues, you're not having it. Because as a man thinketh, so will it be done unto him. And certainly by the words out of your mouth will it be created in your reality. I said, well, then what words can I say? Help me out here, God. How do I get around that? What words, what thoughts can I think? What words can I say that can get me around this stumbling block? And God said, okay, fair question. Here's the answer. Can you go to a place where, while even as you observe that you do not now experience what you wish you could experience, can you go to a place where you can realize that it's coming to you, and it's coming to you very quickly? All the money I need is coming to me now. My perfect partner is coming to me now. My next highest experience of myself, health-wise, is coming to me now. And can you go to a place of gratitude in advance? This is one of the most powerful tools to get past the block of thinking that God isn't responding that I was ever given in my life. God said, I'm going to dare you to do something. I'm going to really invite you at a very high level, almost at a level of dare. I'm going to dare you to actually be grateful for something that is not now being experienced by you in your life. Because gratitude is the attitude. And God said, you will notice when you read the writings and the words and the witnessing of all the world's great spiritual masters, almost to a person, they have expressed gratitude for that which has not yet occurred. That is, their notion of things is that gratitude produces in their physical reality what it is they wish to experience, and often does so very, very quickly. How does that work? I said to God. And she answered, it's very simple, Neale. It works like this. Thank you, God, for allowing me to notice that everything I need is coming to me right now. All the money I need is coming to me now. My perfect relationship is coming to me now. The perfect state of health for my soul to complete its agenda at the highest level is coming to me now. So you thank God in advance. I do this Claire, I have this interesting experience around my dinner table at Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving in the United States, for those of you who are living outside of the U.S., is one of our major national holidays. And all the family gets together. And often in our tradition, we move around the table, all the family members, we talk about the things we are most grateful for. At my Thanksgiving table, I say, no, I don't want to hear that. I do not want you to spend the next 15 minutes, each of you sharing the things you're most grateful for. I want you to go around the table, and each of you announce the thing you're most grateful for that hasn't happened yet. I want you to announce what you're most grateful for that will be happening in the very near future in your life. In other words, I don't want you to look over your shoulder and tell me what you're most grateful for that's already occurred. I want you to tell me what you're most grateful for that's about to occur. The first year I did that, my family was astonished. They had never done a thing like that. I said, do it now. And there was silence at the table for a bit, and then they finally sat down together, and they decided each of them had to come up with the one or two things for which they are most grateful that is about to occur in their life.
Wow, that's powerful.
It was very powerful. It was a very, very powerful experience and a very powerful exercise.
Well, because what it does is, I actually see like this is what unblocks the disconnection, right? Like I actually, like if I all those places where we feel disconnected from the support and flow of the universe, and where we feel disconnected for God, what you're saying is our attention is like on what we don't have yet. And then we feel resentful that we don't have it.
Resentful, we feel angry,
we're like disconnecting from God.
And we feel disappointed, we feel frustrated, we feel angry. It's exactly where I was.
Right. Wow. How many, I want to ask everyone listening, post a comment. How many of you can see this is what you do, or this is what you're doing in relationship to something that you want right now? Post a comment for us on the webcast coming in.
See, want nothing. And want nothing for two reasons. Here's my spiritual advice to myself. By the way, I give myself this advice every day in case you think I'm talking down to you. I certainly am not. This is my daily practice. Want nothing for two reasons. Number one, it's coming to you right now. But if you want it, you are declaring that you do not now have it, and that declaration will be the energetic force that creates your reality. Number two, want nothing because you don't need anything. You actually don't need anything to be anything different than the way it is right now in order for you to be perfectly happy. Oh, I know it seems like you do need something. It seems like we need a different state of health or a different income or a different kind of relationship or a different this or a different that. If I only had this, if I only had that. But in fact, the master, the spiritual master, is the one who needs nothing to be anything different from the way it is right now in order to claim, to represent, to exhibit, and to experience a level of perfect happiness and supreme joy in this moment right now. And by the way, when you study the lives of all the great spiritual masters of whom we are aware, both ancient and present, like the Dalai Lama, for instance, or Thich Nhat Hanh, the great Buddhist monk, and others we could name here, when you look at their lives, ancient and contemporary, you find that they do not stand in the place of imagining that they need or want anything. They simply don't. They are in a place of perfect acceptance with everything just the way it is, exactly the way it is, right here, right now. And in so doing, in moving into that place of great acceptance, they move to a place of inner serenity, inner peace, inner joy, which, by the way, clears out all the blockages to creating,
of the flow, and actually restores a sense of connection to a higher power, and like being in the flow of the universe. Yeah,
that's been my experience.
Wow,
but not wanting anything. Because somebody might say this, it's a fair question. Wait a minute, Neale, what are you saying? I thought you said that you don't want anything and you see everything as perfect right now. Then why even aspire for anything other than the way it is right now? Not wanting and not desiring, not needing and not desiring are two different things. When I open the refrigerator, I do not need to get a bowl of ice cream out of the freezer. I don't need to get ice cream out of the freezer. I may desire it, but I do not need it. Or to make it an even more striking example, when I'm at a friend's house and they say, it's time for dessert, would you like chocolate or vanilla? I would prefer chocolate. But if she says, I'm sorry, we don't have any chocolate, we just ran out, all we have is vanilla, you usually don't get upset about it because it doesn't really matter to me. That's the difference between needing something or imagining that you need something and desiring something. So when we say, don't let yourself feel that you want anything, that doesn't mean that you can't desire something, but let your desire be satisfied with the gratitude of knowing that it's on its way to you right now.
Well, and that's something that keeps you in connection, because where there's connection, where there's flow, where you're together with a higher power, the things that are really for your greatest good will really serve the flourishing and fulfillment of your life can naturally begin to happen. So this is such a powerful first point here to work with, and I'm wondering if we can invite our first coaching guest and maybe have like a little bit of a case study of how to apply this to a specific problem or challenge that we might have in our lives. So we have Robin is here with us tonight live. Hi, Robin. Are you with us? Hello? Oh, I think Robin, are you there? Hello? I've got you on mic now.
I'm here.
Hi, welcome. Where are you calling from tonight?
Boston, Massachusetts.
Wonderful. So this is going to be just a very short laser coaching session. The purpose of these is just to model for everybody, I think, what's possible when we apply these principles in action. So I'd love to just invite you just to start with, Neale, maybe to share something that you're struggling with or you're challenged with.
It's interesting. I've been listening to this conversation this whole time, and Neale, you hit the nail on the head. I want, I'm thinking, I do gratitude, I pray, I meditate, and it feels like I keep struggling financially. And I just, whatever I do it never seems to be enough. And you said that be grateful for things that are coming and just believe that they're here already without that need. Like that was just, it had this aha moment. Like I just sort of feel like my light bulb just went off. But what I struggle with the most is financial abundance.
By the way, I didn't say believe that they're here already. I said believe that, know that, be aware that they are on their way. My perfect income is coming to me now. For me to say my perfect income, is here already, my mind would say, "Oh no, it isn't. You know it, and I know it. Stop lying to yourself." So God suggests we don't lie to ourselves. God suggests we tell ourselves a truth that we can believe. My perfect income is coming to me now. But by the way, you do have enough money. You've always had enough money. You've never not had enough money. You know how I know?
How?
Because here you are.
True.
Of course it's true. Everything I say is true. That was a little joke. But my dear, really, our idea of insufficiency is different from the universe's idea of insufficiency. You're still here. You've been here all these years, and by the way, you'll be here for many more years unless you're not, in which case it won't make any difference. But I suspect that a year from today, you'll still be here. So what we say is, thank you, God, for allowing me to notice that, in fact, I've always had enough. Because here I am. And just the acknowledgement of that, just the embracing of that reality with a smile on our face to say, you know what, ironically, I see that is entirely true. I've always had enough of whatever I need to be here now. That's what's true. What a wonderful universe I live in. Here I am. Now I can only expand it from here, but I can't expand it from here if I expand from a base thinking that I have never had enough. I never have enough. I never have enough. I can never get ahead. I can never get ahead. I can never have enough. Wow, what a place to come from. So but I'm not indicting you, my friend. I was there. I promise you, 20 years ago, that's exactly where I was. But have I learned to change my mind about all of that and to realize that even when I was living on the sidewalk as a street person, I had enough because there I was.
Right.
And let me illustrate that just real fast for you. The people on the street, if you ever saw the movie of my life, they made a movie of my life. And if you ever see that movie, you'll see that the people on the street, that is the street people, I don't mean passersby, I mean people who were living outside with me in the homeless park, they actually gave me money. They who others might think didn't have enough, gave me enough money to get on a bus and go to my first job interview. After finding myself on the sidewalk and living as a street person, I didn't get the money that I needed from passersby who were obviously doing well. Actually, the money that was given to me by people who were also living on the street, which was a huge illustration to me. I looked around and I thought, wow, look at this. Those who others would say do not have enough actually have enough to share with me. Look at that. So the first thing I want to help you change your mind about is that you do not have enough, that your income isn't sufficient. Of course it is, because here you are.
Okay.
And why that's important to you is how I want you to work with that data. How you work with that data is tonight when you go to sleep. Thank you, God, for allowing me to recognize, that is to recognize, that is to know again, to cognize once more. Thank you for allowing me to recognize that I have always had enough, because here I am. Thank you, God. And from that place of gratitude, do I know and announce, do I declare and become sure that even more of the abundance that's always been mine is coming to me now. It has no choice but to multiply, because I've recognized its already present experience in my life.
Those are powerful words.
Yeah, you can't multiply zero. You can't multiply insufficiency. If your thought is you're just hanging out in insufficiency, you can't multiply that. But when we get to a place of gratitude every night of my life, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for allowing me to experience sufficiency all the days of my life, because here I am still. I get it. And now I choose to multiply that sufficiency, and I know that all that I could ever possibly desire is coming to me now. Just a thought.
Oh, that feels powerful. That, like I said, that makes the hairs on my arms stand up. That resonates as so true. And you're right. We've survived 100% of our bad days so far. So our track record is amazing.
Yes, isn't God amazing?
Right.
That's precisely right.
Thank you, Robin.
Wow.
Powerful.
Oh, thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. So great to have you here with us. So, Neale, I know that this is something that you go into in much more depth in the Conversations with God course that's coming up. It's starting Thursday. I want to make sure that everybody has all of the information about that and knows about the opportunity to join you and a global community for the course. This is just such a great example of one of the many misunderstandings we have about God and how life works that leads to the suffering and the disconnection and the powerlessness that we feel. I'm wondering if you can share with us some of the highlights of the course and how you'll be going into this more deeply with people.
Well, I'd be happy to. Thank you for asking me, because I'm so excited about it. Let me just preface by saying that since my Conversations with God experience, which touched my life so dramatically and so wonderfully and so powerfully in my life, I made a promise. This is kind of a personal thing to share, but I'm going to share it. I made a promise to God in my heart of hearts. I said, you know what, God? I'm going to spend the rest of my life, the rest of my days, finding a way to share this with as many people, to share what you've given to me as in terms of awareness and understanding, clarity, and all the rest, to share this with as many people as rapidly as I can until my last day on earth, because everyone needs to know this. God said, well, everyone does know it actually, but they don't know that they know, which is another whole topic. So part of the purpose of the course, and I'm so excited about, I'm so grateful too, by the way, to Evolving Wisdom for providing me with a platform in which I could reach thousands of people, not just a dozen, two here or there, or even 100 or so, but thousands of people through the years, having an opportunity to just talk to people about this and to share with them in an organized way. And one of the greatest things that Evolving Wisdom did was they called me and they said, Neale, we want to give you a challenge. Can you take all that you've learned and all that you've understood and all that you've experienced and organize the material in such a way that the average person could get it by just moving through a step-by-step process with you? I said, you know what? I've been waiting for somebody to ask me that. Yes, I can do that. Give me a couple of hours or a couple of weeks. And we sat down and we devised this wonderful, in my view, 7-week program that allows us to break down, or to use your favorite word, unpackage, to unpackage all of the information that I received in my conversations with God and put it together in such an organized way that a person who's never been part of this whole idea, who's not a member of the so-called New Thought community, they've not done a lot of deep spiritual studying, but they have a deep desire to find out what is it that I don't fully understand here about life, the understanding of which would change everything.
Yeah.
So that's the basic question. If a person finds themselves in that space, there's something that I don't fully understand here, the understanding of which would change all of it for me. If they're in that space, then we put this course together for them. And it has 7 simple lessons. Lesson number 1 is identifying what's missing. It's just an opportunity to learn exactly what it is, the 5 levels of truth-telling, and to really understand what is now missing, if anything, in your relationships, in your work, in your bank account, in your family life, in your spiritual experience, in your health, in the totality of your living environment, and in your ideas about the future and how it's going to be. What, if anything, is missing? That's the first step, and we take people through that step because many people have spent years of their life and never even looked at that in such an organized way. They know that life isn't quite the way they would like it to be, but they haven't been really specific in looking at what's missing. Then we take them to a second step, lesson number 2, which is experiencing what no longer has to be missing, experiencing what you could really be. And we discuss in that second week of the program exactly what I just said here. You may not have anything you want, but we look at it in a great depth. We look at who is God and what does God want, if anything. We look at the question, do you have a right to be happy? And we look at the question of the purpose of life. What is the purpose of life? And then we place before our participants in that program 4 fundamental questions that most people I've experienced have gone through their entire life and never asked themselves. Who am I? Where am I? Why am I where I am? And what do I intend to do about that? It's a powerful, powerful process of self-inquiry that right there has changed people's lives virtually overnight. In our third week, we get to understanding how life works. We want to present to people the mechanics of the mind and what I call the system of the soul, information that was given to me in my conversations with God, how we can change our thoughts and emotions and enlarge our database, as we're starting to do even in this program tonight, but to go really in depth with that over a period of many, many days as part of a weekly program that allows people to look at that not just for an hour or two, but over an extended period of time in a very sophisticated and deep way. In the 4th week of this program, we help people to identify their unfinished business, the emotional incompletions or hurts in their life, the unmet life goals, the fears that they may have, if any, around all of that, and most important of all, identifying the soul's agenda. Those are some of the items that we look at in the 4th week of our program. In week 5, we help them to finish their unfinished business, to understand the soul logic process, which is a process that I've been given in my life that's changed, again, and healed people's lives in a very short period of time. We help them to finish their unfinished business through what I call the forgiveness process. And by the way, let me just say, just as a kind of just a little advanced preview of that, we look at the statement, forgiveness is the biggest obstacle to spiritual growth. I'm going to say that again because that really astonishes people when I say it. Forgiveness, I was told by God, is the biggest obstacle to spiritual growth. Because if you think you have to forgive somebody for something, that's an announcement that you imagine you've been hurt or damaged by somebody or something, and that in turn is an announcement that you've denied who you really are. You've stepped away from the truth of your true identity. Understanding replaces forgiveness in the mind of the Master. We look at all of that at a very deep level in week number 5 to help people finish with their unfinished business. Then we talk about embracing what's really true in week number 6 of this program. And we look at the learning points of lesson number 6. We are all one. There's enough. There's nothing you have to do. And we look at the triad process. We look in depth at a process that tells us, A, nothing in this world is real. 2, the meaning of everything is the meaning that you give it. And 3, you are who you say you are. And your experience is what you say it is. Those sound like fancy words. We've heard those kinds of words before, but in this program, we show how to actually live into that and have it become part of your actual experience. And finally, in the 7th week of the program, we talk about having our own conversation with God. We talk about the 3 phases of death, the 5 attitudes of God, the 17 steps to being happier than God, and then we give people an opportunity to have their own conversation with God. boy, I'm so excited about this program. I can't believe that we've managed to pack this into 7 weeks, but we have. Excuse me, and I can tell you this. It's changed my whole life in the sense that it's given me a platform at last to share with people in an organized way what I was given in my conversations with God.
Well, and with the support of personal mentoring from you, I mean, I think this is one of the most amazing aspects of the program, the opportunity to be mentored personally by you, like Robin was just then. We're going to hear from a couple of other people tonight, too.
It's my favorite part. My favorite part of the program is that we sit down together with people for 90 minutes every week for 90 minutes. And we talk. Sometimes it goes as far as 2 hours, actually, because there's no hard stop. And we just go and go and go until we really satisfy people who are calling in. And we talk back and forth about how to apply the wonderful lessons of the previous week's program. So it's personal. It's live. It's done interactively, right then and there. It's every week. It's the best 2 hours of my week.
Well, I want to make sure everyone has all the information about the opportunity to join in, because it's been nearly a year since we last offered this opportunity. There's a link that's on the live webcast page that you can click on. It's going to take you to the program information page. And we know that many people have just joined us, so we have extended all of the early registration bonuses through midnight tonight. You can read all about them. They're on the page. But there's a very special opportunity for you to access some other amazing resources, including a live video workshop with Neale, which we'll share about a little bit later on in the session. But just click on the link. All the information's there, and we'll share more about that as we go into the call. So let's dive into the second and third block, Neale, that we can't easily connect. We're kind of in disconnection. We don't recognize or express our own divinity. Can you share more about these blocks and how we can overcome them?
Yes, thank you. Many people, the second blockage that I've observed in myself years ago and that I observe in other people even today is that many people feel disconnected from God. And that's of course why God isn't responding, or one of the reasons that they don't experience that God is responding, because they feel disconnected from God. And it's understandable that they would, because most people who believe in God at all, if you have a belief in God at all, most people, that is one more than half, and probably way, way more than one more than half, statistics show us that around 80 or 85% of the people who believe in a God who's separate from us. So it's understandable that we would feel disconnected from God, because humanity has embraced what I call a separation theology. That is, a theology that says that God's over there and we're over here. And our job is somehow to get back over there where God is. Leaving aside for the moment the question of how we got over here. Did God throw us out of the paradise or whatever? Or were we punished? Or we won't even discuss that. That's a whole different program. But for now, let's just notice that it's understandable that we would feel disconnected from God, because the vast majority of people who believe in a God at all believe in a God who is over there and we're over here. That's what I call separation theology. You know what? That wouldn't be so bad if that's as far as it went. I mean, I'm not here to criticize people's beliefs. And if that's as far as it went, it wouldn't even really hurt us. But the fact is that a separation theology almost always produces in cultures and in individuals a separation cosmology. That is a cosmological way of looking at life that says, hey, guess what? We live in a system of separation. That is, stuff is separated from other stuff. And so that system of separation causes us to experience a cosmological approach to life that does not allow us to identify. Forget about identifying with God. We don't even identify with the trees outside or the earth we're walking on, or worse yet, even other people, except those people that we love very dearly. And even sometimes those people we don't identify with, because we live in a separation cosmology that insists that everything is separate from everything else. That wouldn't be even so bad if that's where it began and ended, but it doesn't end there, because a separation cosmology inevitably produces a separation psychology. That is, an individual psyche, an individual approach that says, I Neale, am separate from every other person. I may love them. I may adore them. I may have wonderful, warm feelings for many of them, but I'm nevertheless separate from them. That is, I'm over here and they're over there. And that separation psychology inevitably produces a separation sociology. That is, entire societies that imagine that they're separate from other societies. Groups of people, tribes, if you please, or political parties, or religions, or organizations and organizing groups of a wide variety that say, we're over here and they're over there. Isn't it a shame that we couldn't both be together? But in fact we can't, because we're over here and they're over there, and that's the sociology that we have created on the earth, which says that each of the groups have to look out for their own highest, best interests. And if those interests conflict with the interests of another group, well, as we see on the earth right now, we've got a problem. Which leads to the last aspect of what a separation theology creates. Because a separation sociology inevitably produces a separation pathology. That is, pathological behaviors of self-destruction. Observable on the planet from the beginning of separation theology to this very day, and profoundly in this very day. Pathological behaviors of self-destruction, as we interact with others in ways we would never interact with them if we thought that they and we were one, if they thought that there was no separation whatsoever. So the problem, Claire, is that we feel disconnected from God, which our theology in the main has taught us. God's over there and we're over here, and our job is to get back somehow. And that produces that cosmology, that psychology, that sociology, and that pathology that I've just described to you. We live in that pathological environment right here and right now. Just turn on the Internet, and you'll see it all over the place. In fact, it's beginning to concern people to the degree that we're starting to run around now and say, surely there must be another way. Surely there must be a better way to exist as a highly evolved species, which we imagine ourselves to be. And the answer is, of course, that there is. And I don't want to be tooting my own horn, because it's not really my information. It's information that came from the highest source that resides within all of us in the Conversations with God material. But the CWG material says that's right. That's in fact correct. There is a better way. There is a higher way. There is a grander way. And what we need to do is look at what that way might be and then step into that path. Step into the pathway to the soul. And by the way, we talk about that. I don't want to talk about this too much, but in the third week of the course that I've created, we look at exactly that. We look at the mechanics of the mind and the system of the soul and the doorway between the mind and the soul, which allows us to experience that there is no separation. Claire, Conversations with God made one thing very clear to me. It made the following statement. Here it comes. This is the solution to everything. The statement is, all things are one thing. There is only one thing, and all things are part of the one thing there is. The Conversations with God material covers 3,000 pages. In the first 5 of those 3,000 pages, we are given all the information we really need to have. Point number 1, we are all one. It's really, and not just all one with each other, by the way. It's really very simple. It isn't we are all one with each other. You know, I am my brother's keeper. You and I are the same. We are all one with everything. We are all, and of course, we are all one with God. Once we embrace that notion, the block that causes us to feel disconnected from God dissolves. It simply melts away. But we need to discard our notion, and for some people it's an actual theology, that God is separate from us. When we begin to embrace the notion that God and we are one, that I am an individuation of divinity, a singularization of the singularity, when we begin to embrace that notion, we begin to see that there's no separation between us and divinity at all, and the feeling of disconnection, as I said a moment ago, melts away.
Well, this is very deep, because I think that whether or not we're conscious of it, that separation theology is deep in the structures of our psyche, of our consciousness, of a throne God kind of up there somehow that we're not connected to and a part of. And even though we might philosophically kind of believe that we're interconnected, our experience of life is not one of being connected to God in the way that you're describing.
Because we don't act as if we were.
Right.
See, we're waiting for God to act in us, and in a sense, metaphorically speaking, God is waiting for us to act inside of divinity. So you're right. You're perfectly right. We don't experience that. Many people do not experience that in their everyday life because they're waiting for the experience to fall on them like glitter dust or something from the sky, rather than we, in fact, step into life as a moment-to-moment demonstration of the divinity that resides within us. That takes great courage, but once you undertake a life like that, you can't go back. You don't want to go back. You never want to go back again. You begin to, and people on the earth, by the way, have succeeded in doing that.
So can you give some examples of what that looks like practically? I'm looking at the comments coming in over the webcast, and people with health challenges, people with financial struggles, people with relationship problems. What would God
do now? Yeah, what it looks like to me. What it looks like to me is I ask myself the question: whenever I face any of those circumstances, financial struggles, relationship challenges, health difficulties, or any other aspect of life that is not flowing in the way I wish that it would, I simply ask myself the most powerful question that I've ever been given: what would God do now? If I really were divine, if I really accepted, at least theoretically, like you said, if I just, even as a matter of theory, if I really embraced the concept that I and divinity are one, if I could somehow find a way to get from my mind to my soul and access the wisdom of the soul, with the soul, of course, is the representation of God in us. The soul, if you please, metaphysically speaking, is the energy of divinity that resides within physicality. Again, let me say it twice, in case you missed it. The soul is the energy of divinity that resides within the expression that we call physicality. It's the individuation of God in us. If I could find a way to get to the wisdom of the soul and for my mind to know what the soul understands deeply, in fact, what the soul actually is a representation of, if I can cause that to happen, then stepping into my divinity on a moment-to-moment basis becomes a really very simple challenge to meet, and a very simple process as well. Now, to give you an example of how it works, just because you asked me for an example.